It often seemed to me like a story that has no beginning and no end. I had the feeling that I was a historical fragment, an excerpt for which the preceding and succeeding text was missing. I could well imagine that I might have lived in former centuries and there encountered questions I was not able to answer, that I had been born again because I had not fulfilled the task given to me.
Erlo van Waveren was a New York philanthropist whose fortune derived from a family of bulb merchants in Amsterdam. He was also a patient and student of Jung's, working with him off and on for 11 years, from 1950 until Jung's death in 1961. His testimony is therefore invaluable for us who know Jung only from his writings. Late in life, van Waveren broke this time Jungian taboo by disclosing in his autobiography a strictly guarded secret, that his personal analysis with Jung had mainly revolved around his past life dreams and visions. Van Waveren said in the interviews that with the dawning of the Aquarian age, the time had finally come to bring the hidden, mystical side of Jung to the surface. He tried to help this revelation along by disclosing previously unknown facts about Jung in this series of charming, intimate interviews.
And I told him, said, Professor Jung, I don't understand love. And he bent forward and he said, shall I tell you something? I don't understand it either. And all of a sudden, I knew I was this big and he was this big. Don't ask me what it was, but the reaction of the encounter was the immensity I felt, that on all sides he could encompass me. In 1950, I came to him, and we spoke about my former lives and about his former lives. And the next morning, Mrs. Jung came to me at the Institute and she said, Professor Jung says that you can't say a word about what he told you. No, he was right, because I had had a warning dream also. The Zeitgeist, it is called, the spirit of the time doesn't allow it. And he speaks about that in his memory and reflections. That there are certain things which cannot be accepted. In 1950, I came to Professor Jung. I had sent a message before that with Gary Baines, who went to see Professor Jung, if he believed in reincarnation. And he had told then a dream which later on he put in Memory, Dreams and Reflections, which there was this row of knights, and on the tomb, the last one, there was still life in the little finger and it was moving.
The dream of the row of tombs that Jung had sent van Waveren in answer to the question of whether or not he believed in reincarnation was actually misquoted in the interview. It was not a row of knights that Jung had seen in his dream, but a row of mummified corpses, the identities of which he did not elaborate on, except for the last one in the row, whom he called a crusader. This is a very important distinction because the dead, one from each century, represented Jung's past life history.
I was in a region like the Alice camps near Arles. There they have a lane of sarcophagi which go back to Merovingian times. In the dream I was coming from the city and saw before me a similar lane with a long row of tombs. There were pedestals with stone slabs on which the dead lay. They reminded me of old church burial vaults where knights in armor lay outstretched. Thus the dead lay in my dream, in their antique clothes, with hands clasped, the difference being that they were not hewn out of stone, but in a curious fashion mummified. I stood still in front of the first grave and looked at the dead man, who was a person of the 1830s. I looked at his clothes with interest, whereupon he suddenly moved and came to life. He unclasped his hands, but that was only because I was looking at him. I had an extremely unpleasant feeling, but walked on and came to another body.
Jung's own comment on this dream in Memories, Dreams, Reflections was that it had taught him that such contents are not dead, outmoded forms, but part of the living psyche. He also said that it had led him over the years to his theory of the archetypes. What he chose not to disclose in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, but conveyed to van Waveren, is that before this dream became a cornerstone of his archetypal theory, it had provided him with eye-opening information about his own past life history. There are also manifestations of Jung's preoccupation with reincarnation and liberation from further rebirths in the Red Book. In this painting from the Liber Secundus, Jung captured the relationship between his many incarnations and his greater self. On the right-hand side of the mandala is a multitude of predominantly male faces. Their individual features are more pronounced in the vicinity of the mandala and become more and more blurred with increasing distance from it, until at the outer edge of the painting the faces are reduced to mere skulls. It is remarkable that in all three interviews karma is never mentioned, although according to Jung the concept of karma is inseparable from that of reincarnation. Karma is the great equalizer in the reincarnational cycle. It unites the opposites by making sure that what goes around comes around. It can be the long arm of justice that will catch up with us in the end, or a moral compass that will help us stay on the straight and narrow. As a past life therapist, what I like about karma is that it kicks us out of our long-suffering victim mode and returns our disowned power to us. That can be even more healing than the uncovering of past life trauma itself. Personally, I don't believe that we can spirit karma away with meditation, mantras, and theories of instant global enlightenment. Karma can only be resolved by accepting the consequences of our actions, by living a life of service, and by avoiding the trap of repetition compulsion carried over from other lifetimes. I tend to agree with Jung, who seemed to have this very issue in mind when he wrote in The Secret of the Golden Flower.
Obviously, the veil of Maya cannot be lifted by a mere decision of reason, but demands a most thoroughgoing and wearisome preparation, consisting in the right payment of all debts of life.